You've worked hard since you arrived in the city, gained loads of experience, developed your skills. Everywhere you look, you see something you helped build. But now, you're looking to the future, and maybe you're thinking about where you come from. In Ireland, we need planners, carpenters, plumbers, roofers, engineers, architects, site managers, and more. We need you, with all your skills and knowledge, to help us build thousands of homes. You've built the world. Now come back and build the home that built you. For more information, visit gov.ie/Building Ireland. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
This episode is brought to you by Paranormal Playback, a new podcast where hosts Shar, Mel and Laura recap the spooky and entertaining world of paranormal reality TV. Each week they take a fresh look at popular shows like Ghost Adventures and Kindred Spirits, blending humour with insight as they pull apart what's happening on screen. The three of them are a mix of believers and skeptics, which makes for really fun conversations, sometimes leaning into mystery, other times asking the questions viewers might be thinking themselves. With their background in creative production, they know how these shows are put together, so they're great at pointing out the moments that feel real versus the ones that might be more for the cameras. And their segment, This Old Haunt, digs into the true crime side of paranormal investigations, separating fact from fiction. With Halloween coming up, it's the perfect time to add something spooky, funny and a little addictive to your playlist. For even more spooky, ghostly, paranormal content with a humorous spin, go check out Paranormal Playback. Hello listeners and welcome back to another episode of Scary. Before we get into this week's main episode, as always we need to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers who are Danielle Vella, Amy Douglas, Sophia Campina, Megan Finley Horowitz, JB, Emmy Moore, Theo Farquharson, Nikki Orr, Amy MacDonald and Mark Nielsen. Thank you so much for signing up to the show's Patreon. Without you guys, the podcast wouldn't be possible, and I am forever grateful. And if this is something you're interested in, you can find the link in this episode's show notes where you can gain access to exclusive scary episodes and ad-free main episodes. But now, let's get into our next paranormal encounter. I moved to Chicago in late September about 6 years ago. At the time I didn't know many people living in Chicago apart from a couple of people at work. The office where I had been based before meant that I sometimes had to go to Chicago, so the only interactions I had with people who lived there were through work. My whole move there happened really, really fast, and one of the girls that I worked with mentioned that her friend had just lost a roommate and was looking for somebody to take over the spare room of the 2-bedroom apartment. That's how I got connected with Hannah. We ended up exchanging a few messages and she seemed pretty easygoing. The location was pretty good, it was close to the Blue Line and the rent fit within my budget, so it was a no-brainer. Within a week I was hauling boxes up the stairs. The building was one of those old Chicago walk-ups. There was 3 floors, red brick, stone trim. The apartment itself had a bit of charm to it. You could tell it had been through a lot of tenants. The living room had a ceiling fan with one mismatched blade, I remember that. And the kitchen cabinets were painted over and over. I met Hannah for the second time on move-in day. Hannah was about my age, mid-20s then. She had short dark hair. She had a sleeve of tattoos on her left arm. And she was working in the service industry. She was doing a mix of bartending and hostess shifts, so her hours were really all over the place. Some weeks she worked lunches, other weeks she'd get home close to dawn. Because of that, in those first 2 weeks I didn't see much of her. Usually I'd come home from work around 6 and she'd be already gone. On the weekends she'd sleep late while I was out running errands, getting to know the city. And it actually kind of felt a little bit like living at home, which I didn't mind at all. One thing I did notice though was that her bedroom door was always closed, even when she was and wasn't at home. And on the rare occasion that it was open, maybe she'd go to grab something from the kitchen and forgot to close it, her bed was always perfectly made, like hotel perfect. It was the kind of bed where the top sheet was tucked in tightly, and I thought that was really odd. Like, she must have been making her bed every time she got off it, even if she laid on it. Like, she would correct it, I presume. It was so perfect. Of course, it wasn't a big deal, just something that I clocked without thinking too much about it. Maybe she had OCD or something. I remember it was a Thursday night, about a week and a half after I moved in. I stayed late at work, and I remember by the time I got back to the apartment, it was already dark outside. When I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the place was quiet. Hannah's bedroom door was open, which was unusual. I could see that the light was off inside, but there was just enough glow from the hallway for me to see that there was somebody lying on her bed, and it was a man. He was on his back, one arm over his stomach and the other one bent near his head. The room was dark enough that I couldn't make out every detail, but I could see that he had short hair, he was white, and he had that stillness like somebody was asleep or half asleep. My first thought was, oh, that must be her boyfriend. And for a second I felt annoyed, not because she had a boyfriend, obviously that's her business, but because it was the first time seeing him and I didn't love the idea of some guy I'd never met having a key to the apartment when I was going to be home alone with him. But I reminded myself I was the new one here. 2 weeks in isn't exactly the time to start making demands about who's allowed over. So as I'm walking past her doorway, I turned towards the bathroom and I just gave a quick polite hey, and he didn't respond, didn't move. So I just thought maybe he was either shy, asleep or half asleep, or maybe just didn't feel like talking. So I kept walking, went into the bathroom, and by the time I came out, her bedroom door was closed. People are private. Maybe he didn't want to interact. No big deal. So I don't see Hannah for the next few days, not even in passing, which meant I also didn't see him. So a couple of days went by and it's Monday night, and it had been 3 full days since I'd seen anyone in the apartment besides myself. and I started to kind of fall into a weird routine of coming home to this quiet, slightly stale air apartment, putting on the TV for background noise and making something quick for dinner. Hannah's bedroom door was, like I said, always shut, or most of the time shut when I got home. No sounds of cooking, no footsteps, no music through the hall. For all I knew, she was working back-to-back shifts and crashing at a friend's place in between them. And then I kept thinking about the guy lying on her bed. Not in a dramatic way, more like a catches your attention, something is slightly out of place here. Is there a weird co-share thing going on? So I started thinking of ways to bring it up, like casually, not confrontational, just enough to get a bit of a backstory so I could stop wondering about the whole thing. So I typed out a text. Hey, I think I met your boyfriend the other night. He seemed kind of shy. Haha. I remember staring at it for a moment and thinking, well, should I send this? And then I just hit send. I half expected her to reply instantly with something like, oh my god, sorry, I should have introduced you. But her reply came back about 30 minutes later and it just said, oh, did he drop off my package? And that kind of threw me. I was like, package? What? I hadn't seen a package in the apartment and drop off. Like, no. He'd been lying on her bed, like he'd been there for a while, not popping in to leave something. So I wrote back, not sure, I didn't notice one, thought maybe he was staying over. No reply. So people are busy, she's working these different jobs and shifts. But as the night went on, my phone just stayed silent, and I remember thinking, this is weird. So I just set my phone down, told myself I'm obviously overthinking this, that there's some backstory I don't know yet. So the next night I get home from work later than usual, and the apartment was dark, the same as usual, except for this faint glow underneath Hannah's door. There was a TV on in there. I could hear the low hum of voices and you could see the flashes of the screen underneath the door. And I thought maybe she must be sick, because she had mentioned earlier in the week that she had a string of these late shifts, and I'd gotten used to the idea that we were basically ships passing in the night. So hearing noise from her room caught me off guard. She's sick. So I put down my stuff and I listened for a moment, and then I could hear movement in the room, like drawers opening and closing, creak of a bed, like movement in the room. Not aggressive or anything like that, but somebody was there. Then I'm thinking, it's not Hannah, it's her boyfriend. He's here again. This is a regular thing. So I go up to her door and just knock on it politely, and I just said, hi, I just wanted to introduce myself properly. No answer. I could hear the drawer slide shut, followed by the sound of rustling, maybe clothes or something, and I knocked a little bit louder and I said, did you leave a package the other night? Hannah was asking about it and I can give it to her if you have it, or just let me know where you put it. and there's no response. The TV's playing there at the same volume. So I stand there for a few more seconds, waiting for some sort of sign that somebody was coming to the door to talk to me, but whoever was in there was now not making a sound. So eventually I just gave up and said, okay, alright, no worries. And I just went to my own room. I thought it was rude, and I was just thinking in my head back and forth, who the hell doesn't open the door to introduce themselves? And then I'm like, no, maybe they're really shy, maybe he's got issues, you know. I'm like, no, you still would open the door. So I'm going around my bedroom, then I'm out, then I'm cooking. The noise didn't stop coming from her room, just somebody walking around, TV. Then it would stop, then you would hear it again, footstep, drawer opening, bed creak, just movement in a room. It kind of kept me from relaxing. I remember lying in bed, looking on my phone, staring at the screen, thinking, this is really odd. This guy could be crazy and I'm here on my own. I've never met him. She surely told him to say hi to me, so it would break the ice. So I decided I was definitely going to bring this up with Hannah the next time I actually saw her. At least I could then figure out if this guy had a key, or if I was just, which he must have, or what the setup here is. So it was about 2 nights later when I finally caught Hannah at home. I'd come back from work. She was in the kitchen, barefoot. She had her hair tied up in a messy bun. The first time I'd actually seen her without her rushing out the door. And she just smiled and said, we need a roommate night. I feel like we haven't had a chance to really connect yet. And I just laughed and told her, yeah, it's fine. I'd barely seen her. So she reaches for a bottle of wine on the counter and said, alright, let's fix that now. So we end up sitting in the living room and having 2 glasses. It was actually really nice, really normal. We talked about work, talked about the area. She was asking me if I had seen certain places in the city, recommending places to go. So then after about a glass and a half, I figured I'd bring up about the boyfriend. So I casually said to her, I think I met your boyfriend the other week. And she tilted her head and said, my boyfriend? I said, yeah. I was heading to the bathroom one night and he was lying on your bed. The room was dark, but I saw him when I walked past. I said hi, but he didn't really say anything. And when I came back out, the door was closed, so maybe he was tired or something. She just kind of looked at me with a blank expression and just said, my boyfriend doesn't have a key. He's never even been here when I'm not home. I honestly didn't know how to react because I thought she just maybe had a bit of a dark sense of humour. So I tried to laugh it off initially, even though my brain was like, what the hell is going on here? Eventually I just said, oh, maybe was it one of your friends or something? And she just said, what did he look like? And I said, medium build, maybe late 20s, kind of short hair. I couldn't really see perfectly, but he definitely wasn't super tall. He had a white t-shirt on. And she just said, that's not my boyfriend. He's taller than me. He's got curly hair and a beard. She just kind of said it in this calm, really certain tone. And I said, oh, I actually messaged you about it. You said something about a package. And her eyes kind of flickered and she said, right, I thought you meant the delivery guy. I didn't I didn't realise that you meant someone was in my room. So we both kind of sat there for a minute. I don't really know this girl. She doesn't really know me. And she probably thought I was a complete weirdo. I mean, this new person has moved into your house and is saying that there's a man sleeping on your bed, and you know for a fact that nobody else has a key to the apartment. Or so she says. I just remember feeling really embarrassed. So I said, oh, maybe it was a trick of the light or something. So that night, I'm lying in bed thinking, if that wasn't her boyfriend, then who the hell was lying on her bed? I didn't want to start my new living situation being paranoid, but then something happened that made it impossible to ignore. It was a Tuesday night, and I knew for a fact that Hannah was working the overnight shift. She had mentioned it earlier that day. I was in my room watching YouTube, and I fell asleep for a little bit, and then I woke up to movement in her room. This was louder than the last time. There was footsteps, the TV was louder than before, and it was definitely coming from her room. So I decided to call her phone, and I can't hear a phone ringing in her bedroom, and there's no answer. I can still hear the TV or music playing inside. Part of me just wanted to open the door and ask for forgiveness later, and then something told me not to, because I can't just walk into this girl's bedroom. About 10 minutes later, my phone rings and it's Hannah. So I answer the phone and I say to her, hey, look, I know I'm only after moving in, but you should let me know if there's people staying over, there's somebody in your room again. If your boyfriend has a key, that's fine, but, you don't lie to me. It's just better if we're all open about it all. And she kind of panicked on the phone and said, go to my room and check the room. So I go to the room and I'm pretty terrified. I open the door. The room is empty. So she's asking me, who's in the room? What's happening in the room? What's going on? And I'm standing there with nothing going on. And she just goes, oh, okay, I'll talk to you later, and got off the phone. The next morning, she's come home at some point, and she must have heard me getting ready to leave for work. So she comes out of her room and she says that she doesn't feel comfortable with me living there and she wants me to move out. I think she genuinely thought I was crazy. And for the record, I don't have any mental conditions. I've never hallucinated or, had anything like that ever happen to me before. I end up moving out and I've never heard from her again. It was extremely awkward. But I know what I saw. Thank you to Carly B for sending in her paranormal encounter. And if you have your own paranormal experience that you'd like me to narrate in the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast at gmail.com and it just might get made into a future episode. Don't forget to hit that follow button so you don't miss any future episodes of Scary. And genuinely thank you so much to everybody who has took the time to write a review about the show. They are so heartwarming. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening and join me next time for another episode of Scary.
Dibrig tú go díon ó chánig tú go díon chathair seo, fuair neart taithí agus d'urbar de chud scileanna. I ngácháte éigean tú, fecinn tú rud éigean a chabhraigh tú a thógáil, ach inis tá tú ag féchant ar an todhchaí, agus beidir go bhfuil tú ag smaoinemh ar an áit as a dagan tú. In éireann, tastaíonn pleanálathe, siúnéirí, ploméirí, díanadóirí, inaltóirí, altíirí, banistóirí láithreáin agus níos mó uainn. Tastaíonn tú uainn, le do chuid scileanna agus taithí go léir, chun cabhrúlinn na mílte tithe a thógáil. Tá an domhan tóga agat, a níos tar arás agus tógan teach a thóg tú. Tuile eolais ag gov.ie/Building Ireland. Teachtareacht ó Rialtas na hÉireann.
You've worked hard since you arrived in the city, gained loads of experience, developed your skills. Everywhere you look, you see something you helped build. But now, you're looking to the future, and maybe you're thinking about where you come from. In Ireland, we need planners, carpenters, plumbers, roofers, engineers, architects, site managers, and more. We need you, with all your skills and knowledge, to help us build thousands of homes. You've built the world. Now come back and build the home that built you. For more information, visit gov.ie/Building Ireland. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.